Nevertheless, James was a black dragon. To him, cowering to evil for survival was worse than being dead. Back when he was covered in wounds, almost defeated by the enemy, he did not kneel. When he married Thea and became the son-in-law of the Callahan family, he swore to never let Thea feel sad again. He was the one who insulted Thea, so he should be apologizing, James said while pointing at Tommy. Thea had nothing to do with Alex. Alex only chose to work with Celestial Group because he owes me a favor for saving his life on the battlefield. James wanted to shield Thea from the insults, but he could not let them know his real identity. Everybody was shocked to learn the truth. James continued, "If you want an invitation to the Blythe King's coronation ceremony, I can get one. However, I hope you will stop insulting Thea. Let's go, Thea." After that, he left with Thea's hand in his, not even looking back. Ads by Pub Future. He knew as long as Thea was here, she would continue being the punching bag of her family. If it was other people, he could easily kill them, but they were the Callahans. Thea would never forgive him if he killed them. Damn it. Lex grew even madder watching them leave. The family meeting isn't over and they're already leaving. Who do they think I am? I'm taking back 5% of Benjamin's shares. That was what he wanted to do all along. It was just that he did not have the chance. Now, he only revoked part of Benjamin's shares because he still had to rely on Thea. If they really drove Thea out of the family once and for all, they would lose their business opportunity with Celestial Group forever. Gladys was boiling with anger. 5%. That's tens of millions of dollars. How she wished she could skin James alive. Even now, Benjamin was dead silent. Howard, Tommy, and Megan were gleeful as they hoped Lex would eventually revoke all of Benjamin's shares, now that he had already announced this. That's enough of that. Let the meeting commence. Now, let's discuss how to get an invitation to watch the succession ceremony, Lex spoke. The Callahans began discussing. Ads by Pub Future. Nobody took what James said about him getting them an invitation seriously. They did not believe that a military veteran had such influence on someone like Alex to get them a seat at the ceremony, especially when Alex had already repaid his kindness. One of them spoke, "Well, isn't Megan's boyfriend an Oswald? The Oswalds are just as powerful as the Great Four. We should let Coulson get us an invitation from his family head." Hearing that, Megan glowed with pride as she tugged on a handsome man sitting beside her. Lex looked over to the man as well, putting on a wide smile. "Coulson, do you mind asking your father to pull some strings and get an invitation for the Callahans?" Coulson Oswald straightened his back and replied, "I don't have a problem with that, but I can't guarantee that my dad will say yes. There are many people asking him for an invitation at the moment. He can't possibly agree to everybody's requests. Coulson, you have to help us. Your father will be able to help us out." The Callahans chirped along. Megan answered merrily, "Grandpa, don't worry about it. Coulson will get it done," she said as she gave him a look, "right?" Coulson was speechless. His family was also working on getting an invitation for themselves, too, but to no avail. As much as he was reluctant to do so, he did not want to embarrass anybody, so he nodded. "That's my duty. I'm sure my father can do it." The entire Callahan family was riding on Coulson's back after this meeting. Outside the Callahan mansion. "Enough." Thea pulled away from James's grip and stared him in the eyes. "James, are you done throwing your fit? This is my family. If my grandpa wants you to kneel, just do it. Why are you being so stubborn?" "Thea, go." Thea turned and walked back into the mansion without another word. James was dumbfounded. He was a black dragon. This was not something that should happen to him. However, for Thea's sake, he chose to swallow all of it. He knew Thea valued her family above everything else. That was why he did not run after her when she left. Instead, he waited outside. He sat on the stairs outside the entrance, lighting a cigarette and taking out his phone. He made a call to Henry. "I want to meet the Blythe King." The most he could do now was to get Thea an invitation. Only by doing so could he help to raise the Callahan's social status and make Thea happy. Ads by Pub Future. Soon, Henry called back. "James, the appointment is made. The Blythe King wants to meet you in person, so you say when." "Night time, Central Garden." "Sure, I'll call him right away." After the call, James waited outside of the mansion as the family meeting continued for another hour. When the Callahans came out of the mansion after the meeting, Thea's family followed too. They were all obviously upset. Gladys kept on criticizing James, saying that Thea should divorce him. Among them, David was the angriest because he was the confirmed heir of his father's shares. James's fiasco cost them half of their shares, which was tens of millions lost for David. Great F-gun job, man. David gave him a death stare. That's it. Stop blaming James. He only did this to protect me. Thea had calmed down. She felt sorry for lashing out at James a while ago since he was the only one who had her back after all. James smiled back at her. It's fine, Thea. I'll get you an invitation and your respect from your family. Nobody bought his words. If this happens again, you'll be dead. Gladys yelled at him one last time before she left. Ads by Pub Future. After they got home, James was largely ignored. Hence, he went to the balcony for another cigarette. Benjamin walked in, trying to console him. James, please don't take it to heart. You'll get used to it eventually. James did not answer his father-in-law. He could not bring himself to respect someone as cowardly as him. Getting the signal, Benjamin shut up. James spent the entire morning cleaning and cooking around the house. He paid no mind to how the Callahans viewed him because all he cared about was Thea. At night, James found an excuse to go out. Central Garden, downtown. Two men sat under a gazebo. You're the one who killed Trent. Yes. James did not shy away from the Blythe King's questions, and continued on, he deserved it, and so did his family. The Blythe King frowned and changed the topic. What are you meeting me for? Nothing major. The Callahans want an invitation to your succession ceremony. Go get somebody to send them one. As he finished, James stood up and walked away. Although he was at the same level as the Blythe King, James never took him seriously. The same went for the 4 other commanders-in-chief. Hold on. The Blythe King stopped him from leaving. Huh. James looked back. Anything else? Trent was my subordinate. The Blythe King was quite angry. The murderer of his former subordinate did not even give him an excuse as to why he was killed. So what? James only had apathy. Mind explaining why? I told you, he deserved it. Also, I'm not begging you for an invitation. You can choose not to give me one. James left. A man walked out of the dark after James was out of sight. He really doesn't give a damn about you. Ads by Pub Future. The Blythe King laughed it off, and said, that's how he is. He wouldn't act any different even if Jesus came to earth. Let this go. Trent deserved his death. You, go deliver an invitation to the Callahans. The man felt reluctant and asked, Sir, you are letting him go just like this? The Blythe King replied, what else can I do? Kill him. He handed in his resignation letter but it is yet to be approved. Plus, he's a Black Dragon, the general of the Black Dragon army. Although his time in his post was the shortest, his army is by far the strongest among the other 4 armies. The higher-ups think greatly of him as well. I'll go deliver the invitation. The man did not say anything more. The Blythe King sighed. This restructuring has pushed the 5 regions to the center of the war zone once again. Originally, the Blythe King was not the one designated by the higher-ups to handle this restructuring. It only happened because the Black Dragon sensed the upcoming storm and smartly applied for his resignation before everything began to unfold. Outside the Callahan mansion, a jeep stopped at the entrance, dropping off a few military uniform-clad men. They walked to the front door of the mansion and gave a few knocks. Seeing the soldiers by his door from the surveillance, Lex decided to greet them himself. Generals, may I help you? He was still traumatized by what happened with Trent, so he approached the men with immense caution. One of them handed a delicately prepared envelope to him, announcing the invitation to the Blythe King's succession ceremony. Lex was shaken to his core. Ads by Pub Future. An invitation. Lex, your grandson-in-law is a good one. The man left after leaving him this compliment. Still stunned, Lex held the invitation in awe. What's wrong, Grandpa? Megan came out of the door. Lex finally snapped back to reality. The Western Border Patrol, they sent us an invitation. What? That's quick. I told you so, all we need to do is rely on Coulson. Look, we have an invitation now and it's been less than a day. This is all thanks to the Oswalds pulling some strings with the Western Border Patrol. Coulson came out too, asking, Megan, what's the good news? Darling, thank you so much. Megan gave him a peck on his cheek. Your family got us an invitation. Coulson was astonished beyond words. My family. He did tell his father about this, but his father was a cat on hot bricks about getting his own family an invitation. He sent so many valuable gifts to all those big shots before he could get one for himself. But he got the Callahans an invitation. Bewildered, Coulson still put on a forced smile. This isn't a hard task for the Oswalds. Thank you, Coulson. Thank you so much. You were the best grandson-in-law I ever had. Lex was grinning ear to ear. He had a few grandsons-in-law, but he knew this had to be Coulson's work since the Oswalds were the most influential out of all of the other families. You are a godsend. Come in. I'll prepare a huge gift for you and your father, as a token of appreciation for doing us an enormous favor. James returned home. Before he could exit the elevator, his phone rang. It was Henry. James, news from the Blight King. He sent his men to deliver the Callahans their invitation. Okay, got it. James hung up. He knocked on the door only to be greeted by Alyssa Myers, David's wife. Pathetic loser, are you not embarrassed enough to still come home? James walked past her, entering the house. As soon as he saw Thea on the couch, a smile bloomed across his face. Thea, I already got people to send us an invitation. Thea was in disbelief, as she asked, those are men from the Western Border Patrol. How did you get those guys? James laughed. Did you forget that I was a soldier? I have some connections in the military higher-ups. Ads by Pub Future. But your resume said, you served in the Southern Plains. What does the South have to do with the army at the West? James explained, we aren't related directly, but my ex-superior has ties with a big shot at the Western border. Anyways, I managed to get the invitation for the Callahans. Gladys, Benjamin, and David were also in the house. Gladys could not believe him. She questioned him snarkily, relying on connections, although you served for a decade, you were a mere soldier. What connections could you possibly have? James, I'm warning you, don't trick Thea just because she is naive. You can't trick me, Thea. You have to be smarter. Why are you trusting this fool? All he has is some medicinal knowledge. He isn't rich or powerful. James was already used to Gladys's degrading remarks. He marched straight toward Thea. Thea, let's go to the Callahan mansion now. I will win your reputation back this time. James, are you serious? Benjamin could not help but ask. He, too, wasn't sure about James's capability to get men from the Western Border Patrol to do them a favor. The seats for the succession ceremony were very coveted. The rich and wealthy in the 5 regions were dying to get themselves an invitation. Dad, are you buying this guy's words? David scoffed. He hated James to the bone. James was the biggest obstacle on his path to riches, mansions, and sports cars. His dreams of living a high life were shattered because of James. James ignored all of those people and brought Thea away. Gladys decided to tag along because of how confident James was. Ads by Pub Future. If what he said was true, Lex would be over the moon, and he would definitely reward Thea. By then, getting their shares back would be a piece of cake. In the Callahan mansion, Lex was on cloud 9. This was the invitation he dreamt about day and night. An invitation to the succession ceremony of the Blight King, which only had 100 seats available, according to the rumors. So many billionaires in the 5 regions were spending money on gifts and tricks just to get their hands on an invitation. Now, with the Oswalds' help, he secured one. Overjoyed, Lex handed Coulson a card. My Coulson, there's 5 million in this card. Just a small gift for your family's kindness. Oh, Grandpa, this is too much. Coulson acted humble, but he immediately took the card. We're one family now, we should help each other. This made Coulson bubble with excitement. He knew how many relations and how much money his family had to use in order to get an invitation to the ceremony. This invitation was not here because of the Oswalds, meaning that Lex had given him 5 million for no reason, which he gladly received. How could he possibly turn down free money? The Oswalds are the best. That goes without saying. Their business, Granger Pharmaceuticals, is one of the biggest in Kensington. Coulson's father Stefan Oswald is a social butterfly. He has a lot of connections. Thank God Coulson is with us, or else we would never get an invitation. Megan got herself the right boyfriend. Look at how he's helping her family. The Callahans were flattering Coulson, almost making him trippy. It's just a small contribution. Just when everybody was bathing in the celebratory mood over getting an invitation, James and Tia entered the house, followed by Gladys, Benjamin, David, and Alyssa. Their presence made the atmosphere drop to a low. Megan stood up, rather bothered. What are you doing here? Tia called. Megan, sis. Megan screeched, berating her, don't regard me as your family. Ads by Pub Future. Lex's wonderful mood was spoiled by seeing Tia's family in his mansion, especially when he saw James, this arrogant son-in-law that dared to disrespect him. He was not even from his bloodline. Go away. He pointed to the exit. Grandpa, James had his friends from the military request the Western Border Patrol to send us an invitation. I came to make sure if we have received it already. Everybody's eyes were on Lex, waiting to watch how he responded. Before Lex could even speak, Tommy talked over him. You are saying James made the Western Border Patrol send us this invitation? Are you even serious? This is clearly the Oswalds helping us, and Coulson was the one who made all of this happen. He's right. Megan sneered at James. How can a small soldier like you be connected with the executives in the Western Border Patrol? You only came to take credit once the invitation is here. How shameless of you. James said nothing to the insults. He just stared at Coulson, who was sitting on the couch, cross-legged. Coulson glared back at him, yelling, "What are you looking at, dumb SS? Shame on you. Why can't he just acknowledge the Oswalds and stop stealing their credit for getting us an invitation? He's such a loser." Yeah, if Coulson wasn't here to defend the Oswalds, he would have gotten what he wanted. The Callahans quipped nasty comments about James, without forgetting to prop Coulson up at the same time. Gladys could not stand the criticisms anymore. She smacked James on his head and demanded, "You fool, you are embarrassing us again. What are you waiting for? Leave now." Tia was filled with sadness once more. She thought James would actually help her impress her grandfather. However, he only came to claim the Oswalds' work after seeing the Western Border Patrol sending them their invitation. "James, I'm so disappointed in you." She ran out of the mansion crying. Tia, Gladys followed her out. David and the others could not bear to stay, either. They left in a hurry. James looked at the Callahans and broke into a disheartened smile. You guys really need to look at yourselves in the mirror. Fine, it was the Oswalds, right? Let's see how you are going to attend the ceremony tomorrow. He turned and left after saying that. Outside the Callahan mansion, he took out his phone and called Henry. Tell the Blythe King to void the invitation he sent to the Callahans. Henry could not figure out what James was up to, but he did as he was told and informed the Blythe King about this. All James wanted was to make Tia happy. He asked the Blythe King for an invitation, but he had not expected someone else to take the credit for it and cause Tia to misunderstand the situation. He ran after her when his call with Henry ended. "Tia." He caught up to her and grabbed her arm. "I wasn't lying to you," he tried to explain. "I had someone send that invitation, but I wasn't expecting them to take the credit for it. You're still trying to steal credit. You're useless." Gladys snapped. "Haven't we been humiliated enough?" "Sis, he's just a retired soldier," David said to Tia. "There's no way he's as capable as he says. Just divorce him." "Enough, James," Tia said, tears pooling at the corner of her eyes. "I'm grateful for how well you treated me, and I'm forever grateful you healed me. But I don't want to see you right now. Please leave." With that, she turned around, sobbing as she ran. James panicked. He had never felt so helpless, even when he faced thousands of enemy troops. Useless lout. Can't even do anything right, Gladys cursed at him again. James stood still and watched the Callahans leave, then took in a deep breath. He chased after them to their home but was forbidden from entering. With no other choice, he chose to leave. He decided he would explain what had happened to Tia once she had calmed down. He made his way to Henry's clinic. "James, what brings you here?" Henry asked as he entered the building, but stopped when he noticed the expression on James's face. Henry wordlessly tossed him a cigarette. James was frantic. He wanted to make Thea happy, but he had not expected someone to shamelessly steal credit like this. Should I not have come back here, Henry? He asked, taking a drag of his cigarette. Smoke wafted upwards from between his fingers. What happened, James? Ads by Pub Future. James told Henry everything. Henry smiled helplessly. I've never been in a relationship before, so I can't help you there. But, if you want, I can get rid of the Oswalds for you. No, forget it, James sighed, waving the suggestion away. It's not that serious. Besides, this is Kensington. It's a peaceful city, not the southern border. The tactics we use against enemies can't be used against our compatriots. Henry stayed silent at that. Oh, right, Henry. You've been handling my assets this whole time. How much do I currently have? James had been through a lot since returning to the city. He had always thought of money as worthless, but recently he started seeing it as essential. How would I know? Let me think. Once, you took some gold mines from an enemy country, then sold them to someone for around 30 billion. There was another time you saved some rich man from the enemy troops because he had committed a crime, so the rich man gave you 10 billion in gratitude. Oh, there were also some rich merchants on the southern border that paid you yearly so you would protect them. Add all those up and you should have at least 2 or 300 billion. I'm that rich, James said in surprise. He never used to care about these things, but he was shocked to find out how much he actually had now that he started to care about money. You are the Black Dragon commander of the southern border, James. The south is the most chaotic, but it's also the easiest border to get rich at. You have countless assets, you just didn't bother trying to get them. Otherwise, you'd be the richest man in the world by now. Looks like I was pretty stupid back then, James muttered. Why do you suddenly care about money, boss? You have that Black Dragon card the higher-ups rewarded you with. There's 10 billion in there. By all accounts, you shouldn't be short on cash. Thea said I was hiding money from her and took it. Said she'd hold on to it as funds for our kids. James smiled subconsciously at the mention of Thea. Henry, buy that newly built trade center in Kensington. What? Henry stared at James in shock. The Trade City Center was a newly built commercial city. In it, there were over 50 buildings that were 50 floors tall, as well as a night market, a pedestrian zone, and an antique street. The city center was complete. It was a joint effort from several real estate tycoons to turn it into the grandest commercial city in the country. What? Do we not have enough money? Then use our connections to do so. Henry stared at James. Just what are you planning, boss? He could not help but ask. We have around 200 billion if we added our funds together, but do you know how big that commercial city is? Just the land it's built on is worth a fortune. I heard the real estate tycoons invested around 500 billion into the place. It took them 5 years to finish construction. James did not care for the details. Just tell me how much it's going to cost. Henry thought about it. Well, they invested 500 billion into it. Even at the lowest price with them not turning a profit, we'd need at least 600 billion. Ads by Pub Future. Buy it. If there's not enough, get the rest of the 600 billion from the wealthy at the southern border as soon as possible. Just get me the Trade City Center. That's not a small amount of money. I might have to make a trip to the southern border myself. Go, James waved. Meanwhile, in the Clahans' home. Why are you still hesitating, Thea? Just divorced James already. That's right, sis. Even being Alex Yates's mistress is better than being with that retired soldier. The family surrounded Thea, urging her to divorce James. I'm tired. I'm going to bed, Thea said, then left to go to her room. She sat on the bed, lost in thought. Thea had grown used to James being by her side. Now that he was gone, she felt somewhat lost, as if something important had disappeared. She knew James only wanted to make her happy, but it backfired and humiliated her in front of her family. Ads by Pub Future. She pulled her phone out, intending on calling James so she could tell him to come home. Instead, she paused before hitting the call button and huffed. Why should I do that? He's the one that made a mistake. He should be the one that calls me to beg for forgiveness. Why should I call him? With that, she tossed her phone onto her bed in annoyance. However, she glanced at her phone sporadically, hoping he would call. A minute passed, then 10 minutes. 30 minutes. An hour. 3 hours. Thea waited until 1 in the morning, but James never called. He never even sent a text. She paced furiously around the room, cursing him for being a heartless man. After James told Henry to buy the Trade City Center, Henry went overnight to the Southern Plains to collect some money. The Southern Plains was on a border, with lots of small powers in it. These small powers were rich in precious ores and minerals, so the wealthy were not rare there. Getting several hundreds of billions from them would not be a difficult task. The purpose of James returning was for both gratitude and vengeance. He had been by Thea's side all this time and had neglected to deal with the Great Four. Apart from killing Warren and Trent Xavier, he had not done anything else. He decided to look for Rowena Xavier while Thea cooled off and get the whereabouts of Moonlit Flowers on Cliffside's edge out of her. In the Xavier's remaining villa. It was dawn, so the villa's lights were off. Outside the building, a silhouette appeared. The person wore a black overcoat and a black ghost mask, melting into the shadows like an apparition. The bank liquidated the Xavier's other villas, and now most of them were either homeless or renting houses to live in. This remaining villa was Rowena Xavier's personal property. Trent's plan to heavily inflate the prices of worthless artifacts and sell them off to people worked. Most of the attendees had spent money in that auction and bought something from the Xaviers, intimidated by Trent's power. Trent may have died, but the money fell into Rowena's hands. Rowena was a woman, but she became a pillar of hope after Warren and Trent's deaths. The Xaviers all turned to her, in hopes of her pulling them back up into wealth. Villa, room on the second floor. An old man, around 50 years of age, lay on the bed. Beside him was a woman clad in a white dress. That woman was Rowena Xavier. She was in her 30s but looked no older than 19 thanks to her high-maintenance lifestyle. She was slim and had delicate facial features. She was an attractive woman in every sense of the word, with her long hair flowing down her shoulders and her slightly see-through dress only accentuating her seductive charm. "Mr. Bertrand, when are you going to make good on your promise?" Rowena said as she looked at the old man on the bed that was wearing only his underwear. This man was a big shot, with connections in high places. The Xaviers were bankrupt. Most of their assets had been liquidated, so Rowena too was using every connection she had in order to get back some of their properties. Charles looked at the gorgeous Rowena and smiled. "Don't worry, I always keep my word. As you know, Alex Yates used the proper channels to bankrupt you. I need to be able to deal with every aspect of that." Rowena walked over to him and snuggled into Charles's arms. "I've given you at least 50 million, Mr. Bertrand," she said coquettishly. "It's been so long. Give me an accurate time frame." "Soon. It's soon. Within a few days." Charles was smiling at her, but he was secretly disdainful. "Stupid woman," he thought. "Your family has fallen. Trent is dead. There's no way the Xaviers will be able to return to being one of the Great Four. I've long since used up the money you had given me. Did you actually think I'd humor you if it weren't for money? Don't worry, Mr. Bertrand. You'll get your share once I get my family's finances stabilized. I'll be all yours, too." Bang! Just then, the bedroom door was kicked open. "Who goes there?" Charles jumped, startled, and crawled to his knees. He trembled when he saw the person that kicked the door open was wearing a ghost mask. He rolled out of bed and fell on the floor, then started frantically putting his clothes back on as he said, I have nothing to do with them. I don't know anything. I'm leaving now." Everyone in Kensington knew who the man in the ghost mask was. He was the one that killed Warren and Trent. Rowena trembled as well when the man entered the room. James walked slowly towards them. Charles sprinted past him, now fully dressed, but he was yanked backward and tossed back onto the bed. He curled into a ball in fright and kept as quiet as he could, afraid he'd say something to anger the god of death in front of him. "Who the hell are you? Why do you hold a grudge against us?" Rowena asked when she had calmed down, staring down at James. James took his mask off. "You," Rowena said, bewildered. "James Caden, the one who married into the Callahans." "Yes," James confirmed. "Wait, James Caden," Rowena said in shock, suddenly recalling something. You are Nicholas Caden's son." James nodded, then pulled a chair over and sat by the bed. He calmly lit a cigarette. The big bedroom was completely silent, save for the quiet hiss of the lit cigarette. Charles remained balled up in bed, still keeping his silence. Rowena's expression darkened. She finally knew who destroyed her family. What the hell do you want, James? Haha. James started laughing, but there was no humor in it. His laughter was terrifying. You are asking me what I want, Rowena. You're the reason my grandfather was falsely accused and turned into the laughingstock of the entire town. You were the one that caused my father to have a heart attack, then pushed him off the third floor and lied to everyone that he committed suicide. You, and the rest of the Great Four, tied my entire family up and set fire to our home. You killed more than 30 people, and you are asking me what I want. James was like a tiger that had escaped its cage. Bloodlust emanated from him. He roared, making Rowena's ears ring and stunning her. She was afraid now. She had never been so scared. Rowena was a smart woman. James killed her father and brother, but the news about it had been suppressed. She knew the man standing before her was no longer the helpless boy he was 10 years ago. I am still your stepmother, James. You. Smack. James stood and backhanded her. He did not bother holding back. Rowena recoiled from the force and fell spread eagle onto the bed. Her fair cheeks swelled red instantly and blood leaked from her mouth. James grabbed a fistful of her hair and pressed her head into the bed. He put out his cigarette on her face. He showed no mercy, not caring that Rowena was a woman. He recalled how aggrieved his grandfather was before he passed. He recalled what his father looked like when he fell from the third floor. He could never forget the memory of watching his loved ones burn alive. Rowena screamed in pain. Charles had fallen off the bed in fright. He cowered by the wall, not even daring to breathe too loudly. Rowena Xavier, did you ever think your reckoning would come when you destroyed my family? You need to die, Rowena Xavier, so all 38 members of my family can finally be put to rest. I'm sorry, James. I really am. You've ruined my family. Please let me go. Right now. Rowena was no longer the noble and elegant woman she was. She begged for mercy shamelessly, throwing all dignity aside. James pulled out a switchblade. Shake. James brutally sliced across Rowena's face. In an instant, a shockingly red line appeared across her cheek. Blood streamed down her neck and dyed her white shirt red. Rowena's expression contorted in agony, unable to scream from the pain. 10 years ago, Thea Callahan risked her life to save me from that inferno. She's my savior, yet your Xaviers tormented her. I'll return everything your family did to Thea 100-fold. Don't worry, I won't kill you. I'll show you what true despair looks like. Your life will be a fate worse than death, but you won't be able to die. James lifted his arm again and sliced Rowena's face. I'm sorry, James. Please let me go, Rowena begged, now a sobbing mess. James tossed the switchblade aside and sat back down on the chair beside the bed. He looked at Rowena, a horrifying sight now that she was covered in blood. Where's moonlit flowers on Cliffside's edge? James's roar was like cracking thunder, making Rowena's ears ring and leaving her in a daze. All she could do was sob, not knowing how else to respond. After a while, she finally calmed down enough to say something, her face a look of despair. I don't know. I really don't. I think Trent took the painting to the Capitol as a gift for someone. Slice. James picked up the switchblade from the bed and swung it at Rowena's hand, splattering blood everywhere. Rowena opened her mouth in agony, but no sound came out. Her expression twisted hideously in pain and she trembled. James casually pulled out some silver needles and inserted them into Rowena's body. Rowena could not die yet. Not without the painting back in his hands. Her palm stopped bleeding after the needles were inserted, but the pain was still there. It was an unbearable kind of pain. Right now, all she wanted was to die. James was right. Living was worse than death, yet she was unable to die. James sat back down and stared at Rowena, looking like a bereaved dog. This pain you've suffered is nowhere near enough to atone for your sins, he said coldly. I'll ask you again, where is moonlit flowers on Cliffside's edge? I don't know, Rowena said through chattering teeth, barely able to get her words out. James frowned. The average person would have cracked and told him the truth under such torture, out of a primal need for self-preservation. If Rowena was saying that she had no idea where the painting was, did it mean she was telling the truth? That painting was his family's most treasured heirloom. It had been passed down through his lineage for countless generations. His grandfather even said that their family could be annihilated, but the painting could not be lost. Rowena was still trembling, her teeth chattering. She felt incredibly lightheaded but was stuck in consciousness, unable to truly faint. Pain emanated from the wounds on her face and arms, tormenting her by keeping her awake. James was a demon. The fear she felt of him ran deep into her core. She kept pleading for mercy. "I'll spare you tonight," James said. "I'll give you some time. Find out where the painting went. If by the time I come back for you, you can't tell me where it is, I'll show you true despair." James stood and walked over to Charles, dragging the cowering man up. Charles trembled, and a pool of liquid grew under him. He had soiled his pants in fright. I have nothing to do with this. I don't know anything." Charles stuttered before begging for mercy. "You didn't see anything. You didn't hear anything. If even a word of what happened tonight gets out, well, you know the consequences," James said coldly, but he knew who deserved his wrath. Charles had done nothing to him. He was not going to kill him. James glanced back at Rowena lying placidly on the bed. "I'm sure you're curious as to who I am. I don't mind telling you. I'm the Black Dragon of the Southern Plains, commander of the Black Dragon Army. Forget Trent Xavier, I can even kill the Blight King if I wanted to." With that, he left. He told Rowena to add pressure, so she would spare no effort tracking down Moonlit Flowers on Cliffside's edge. The only noise heard after James left was Rowena's sobs. She was still trembling. The Black Dragon, the commander of the Southern Plains. That Black Dragon, one of the 5 commanders. She did not dare believe her ears. How did the Caden kid from 10 years ago turn into the universally feared Black Dragon? She may not have been in the military, but Trent was a soldier with a high ranking. She had heard him mention the 5 commanders once. The Black Dragon had only been a commander for a short time. 1 year, to be exact. But he was by far the scariest. His power was beyond comprehension. Not only that, he was an exceedingly talented doctor, too. She had never in her wildest nightmares imagined James would gain such a terrifying identity. It was no wonder that the Blight King did nothing when Trent was killed. The person that killed Trent was the Black Dragon, someone that not even the Blight King could touch. Charles only started calming down when James left. His entire body was drenched in sweat. He trembled again when he caught sight of the wound-laden Rowena, turning away to run. Don't go. Save me. Send me to the hospital. I have money, I'll pay you." Earlier, Rowena wanted to die, but now that James was gone, her will to live returned. Charles stopped at the mention of money. He weighed his options. James said he would leave Rowena alive before he left. If he left and Rowena died, he would have nowhere to run if James decided to blame him for it. Besides, if he saved Rowena, he'd get money for it. With that in mind, he took his phone out and called the emergency hotline. Meanwhile, James put his mask back on as he left Rowena's villa. He then went to the Frasers, the Zimmermans, and the Wilsons' homes. Dawn, Kensington, Caden Mausoleum. In front of Thomas Caden's grave, 3 bloodied heads were placed before his tombstone. James knelt before Thomas's grave. Grandfather, Warren Xavier, Eve Fraser, Jacob Zimmerman, and Desmond Wilson are dead. Everyone that set fire to our home back then are dead. But, forgive me, I was unable to locate the whereabouts of Moonlit Flowers on Cliffside's edge. Don't worry, though, I'll definitely get it back. The main culprits may be dead, but I won't allow the Great Four to get away that easily. I'll show them true despair. I'll make their lives a living hell. I'll torture them to death to avenge our family. Kneeling before Thomas's grave, James sobbed openly. He was the Black Dragon of the Southern Plains, yet even in the face of countless troops, he never shed a tear. Men did not shed tears when they bled. However, at this moment, he cried openly, loudly. He may have been the almighty Black Dragon, with unparalleled strength, but no one knew what he had endured in these 10 years. 10 years ago, he was scorched by fire. He witnessed his loved ones wailing in agony in the inferno, their desperate cries and expressions seared forever into his mind. However, just as he was about to give in to despair, A girl in a ponytail rushed in and undid his bindings, then saved him from the sea of fire without any regard for her own safety. After they had rushed out of the burning estate, he jumped into the river and ignored the girl, even though he saw that she was burning too. He had been consumed with guilt in these 10 years. He blamed himself. With hatred on his back, he went from being a lowly soldier to rising through the ranks and becoming the black dragon he was today. Repayment. Revenge. His enemies may have been dead, but the hatred in his heart was not so easily dispelled. The Great Four had sinned. They had to be punished. Besides, from what Rowena had told him, he figured out that the mastermind that had orchestrated the fall of his family was someone in the capital. They had James's family killed so they could obtain moonlit flowers on Cliffside's edge. He clenched his fists. I don't care who took the painting, grandfather, but I promise you I will have his head before you as tribute. 10 whole years of pain and torment turned into tears streaking down his face. Soon, a hint of the morning sun broke through the horizon, illuminating the dark world. He killed the great Force patriarchs and paid tribute to the dead souls of his family by presenting their heads to his grandfather. Today, on the other hand, was a huge occasion for Kensington, even by the standards of the 5 regions. There had been no official announcements for the date of the Blythe King's succession, but they had released a notice that it would be held this afternoon in Kensington's military base. This caused an uproar. The residents of Kensington were still trying to figure out how to get an invitation to the event. Immediately after, another breaking news rocked Kensington. Good morning, everyone. This is Kensington News. Last night, famous tycoon Eve Frazier was found dead in his home. Jacob Zimmerman and Desmond Wilson, too, had been found dead in their homes. They died in the same manner, tied to a chair and decapitated. The authorities have launched an investigation. For more updates on this news story, please stay tuned to the station. This news caused another uproar. What? Eve Frazier, patriarch of the Fraziers, had a net worth of tens of billions of dollars. Jacob Zimmerman, patriarch of the Zimmermans, also had a net worth of tens of billions of dollars. Desmond Wilson, patriarch of the Wilsons, and also part of the Great Four, also had a significant net worth. What was going on? Who dared make trouble when the Blythe King's succession ceremony was just about to begin? These deaths were not of ordinary people. They were 3 of the most well-known tycoons in Kensington. This was obviously done to provoke the Blythe King. Everyone was discussing the situation that had developed, along with the earlier death of Warren Xavier, the late patriarch of the Xaviers. Was it just a coincidence that all 4 patriarchs of the Great Four are all dead, or was someone behind this? Kensington, the city hospital. Rowena was taken to the hospital in time and had her severed palm attached. However, she could no longer exert any force with that hand in the future. She lay on the hospital bed, head covered in bandages. Rowena, something major just happened. The heads of the Fraziers, Zimmermans, and Wilsons are dead. They were all found tied to chairs, with their heads cut off. An important member of the Xaviers said. What? Rowena froze, then trembled. Dead. Who the hell hurt you, Rowena? Does this have anything to do with father's death? Was it the same person that killed the other 3 heads? Rowena turned pale. Get everyone in our family to leave, big brother, she said frantically. Go as far away as possible, and never come back. What are you so scared of, Rowena? Hector Xavier asked, confused. Who exactly is it? Today's the Blythe King's succession ceremony, but this guy did something that's shaken the entire city. This is clearly provoking the Blythe King. There's no way he'd let whoever this is get away with it. Don't ask questions. Please just listen to me. Leave now, or our entire family will be eradicated. Rowena was terrified. This was the Black Dragon they were talking about. The Blythe King meant nothing. If the Blythe King tried to do anything, he'd die, too. Hector nodded, still confused. Fine. I'll arrange for everyone to leave. But, what about you? Rowena shook her head. It's no use. I committed a grave sin. I'll never be able to escape, no matter where I go. Just leave, Hector. Forget about me. Rowena knew what kind of person the Black Dragon was. This was a person who stood on top of everyone else. Escape. How on earth would she do that? Where would she run? She knew that no matter where she ran to, the Black Dragon would find her, then she would be in real trouble. However, If she could find out where Moonlit Flowers on Cliffside's edge was, she may be able to redeem herself and get her life back. She might even be able to preserve her family's survival. Hector did not know why Rowena was so terrified. However, he knew that Rowena had figured out the identity of their father's murderer. It was the same person who murdered the other patriarchs as well. One family, in particular, stood out to him. The Cadens. There was only one family who had bad blood with the Xaviers as well as the other three families. It was the Cadens, who were destroyed 10 years ago. He did not ask further questions or say anything else, turning to leave instead. Lying on the bed, Rowena was in despair. All she wanted was for the Xaviers to reclaim their power. Now, she knew that it was fruitless. She should be counting her blessings that her family was still alive. The Black Dragon is terrifying. He's trying to get rid of the Great Four once and for all. I get it though. Based on what happened 10 years ago, anyone else would have a hard time putting it behind them too, Rowena mumbled hopelessly. Simultaneously at some military base. The Blight King was in his military uniform, adorned with 5 stars. Sir, something happened last night. A few people were murdered. They were. The Blight King's most trusted confidant approached, giving him a rundown of last night's events. The Blight King's brows furrowed. Was it the Black Dragon? Highly likely. The Black Dragon was the one Thea saved from the fire 10 years ago. His face was badly burned and disfigured. Somehow, he managed to transform his face completely. He ended up at the southern plains, becoming a soldier and killing enemies on the battlefield. He made his mark within the short span of 10 years, earning the moniker of the Black Dragon and leading the Black Dragon army of 1,000,000 soldiers. Confused, the Blight King asked, does he have a grudge against the Great Four? I've discovered that the incident 10 years ago regarding the Cadens getting eradicated is closely tied to the Xaviers. The fire at the Cadens involves the Great Four as well. The Blight King looked as though he was deep in thought. Previously, all he knew was that James murdered Trent because Trent had made a move on his wife, Thea. He did not expect that it would be this complicated. Thea saved James 10 years ago, while the Xaviers were responsible for eradicating the Cadens. Sir, what should we do? It's supposed to be your succession ceremony today, but James has made a mess of things. If we don't say something, this will affect your reputation. The Blight King looked bitter. Say something. What do you want me to say? Do you expect me to send an army and take the Black Dragon down? I don't have the guts. Report it to the higher-ups. Let's see what they say. Yes, sir. Hold on. Is there anything else, sir? Forget about it. The Blight King gave it some more thought, saying, cover it up. Get someone to take the blame for James. Sir, please consider it carefully. The Black Dragon resigned and returned to Kensington for revenge. This is just the beginning. Who knows how many more of the Great Four will die. We can cover it up once, but can we do it forever? If we are not careful, this could cause an uproar. Furthermore, this is under your jurisdiction. If the higher-ups were to pin the blame on someone, the responsibility. Do as I say. The Blight King took a deep breath. Who was the Black Dragon? He was the commander of the southern plains, commanding his soldiers like a god. Not only was his strength unrivaled, but his medical skills were also second to none. The Blight King did not think the higher-ups would cause any trouble for the Black Dragon. If he reported it, they might even suspect him of accusing the Black Dragon. He really would not be able to take the blame then. Yes, sir, I'll think of something now and notify the media. The Blight King's confidant left. The Blight King pondered on the matter. Surely the higher authorities were familiar with James' background. Yet, they allowed James to return to Kensington. Then, they assigned him here. What are they trying to do? The Blight King exhaled deeply. He could not guess at their thoughts anymore. Just before the Blight King's succession ceremony, the 3 remaining patriarchs of the Great Four were murdered. This caused an uproar. After James paid tribute to his family, he returned to the House of Royals, where he took a shower and changed his clothes. He then checked his phone for the time. However, he noticed a few missed calls and unread messages. It was now 8 in the morning. At the Clahans, Thea sat on the bed in her room, staring at her phone. She had stayed up the entire night, yet James did not call or even send her a message. She forced herself not to call James. After an entire night, she gave in. She called James a few times but he did not answer. She sent him a few messages. He did not reply. She grew extremely worried. Did I hurt his feelings last night? Was I too harsh with my words? Thea could not help but berate herself. Full of regret, she wished she could take her words back. James read the messages from Thea. Jamie, I'm sorry. I behaved rashly yesterday. I didn't mean it. Please come home. Reading the message, James smiled. He had never been angry at Thea. It was only because she was angry that explaining anything to her would prove a difficult task. He had wronged Thea. Thea saved him, yet he selfishly jumped into the river and abandoned her. After saving him, Thea became the ugliest woman in Kensington. She became a laughingstock, ridiculed by all including her own family. Now, as long as it made Thea happy, he would do anything, save for kneeling to another person. Not even if it was Thea's grandfather. He would rather die on his feet than live on his knees. This was the Black Dragon's dignity. He replied to Thea's message immediately. I'm sorry. I just woke up so I didn't manage to answer your calls. I'm coming home now. James was planning to take a nap. It could wait. He sped toward the Callahans with the multipurpose vehicle without a license plate. Arriving at the entrance of their residential area, he noticed a fleet of cars parked there. All the cars belonged to the Callahans. The entire family was present, including Thea. It was the Blythe King's succession ceremony today. The Callahans had gotten an invitation. The entire family was present with their fleet of cars. In the lead was a Bentley worth a few $1,000,000. The rest were BMW race cars worth millions as well. David's car was the shabbiest. Lex craved prestige and status. Now that he had secured an invitation, he wanted all of Kensington to know. He might have been the only one allowed to attend, but he still put on a lavish display with the fleet. There were even banners on the fronts of the cars. The banners were celebratory, featuring phrases about the Callahans attending the Blythe King's succession ceremony. Standing in front of the Bentley, Lex was in a smart suit, leaning on his cane. Glowing with pride, he had never looked more alive. James approached in his multipurpose vehicle without a license plate. Even though the car had no license plate, it had a unique logo. It resembled a black dragon or maybe a black cloud. Seeing the Callahans, he stopped his car and disembarked. Ignoring the entire family, he made a beeline for Thea. His face split into a wide grin. Thea, Jamie. Thea strode forward, taking his hand. She looked apologetic. I'm sorry for what I said last night. I might have been too harsh with my words. Where did you go? I was at Henry's. How dare you show up, you worthless B*****. Tommy approached with his nose in the air, looking at James with contempt. He then glanced at the car with no license plate. It was a multipurpose vehicle featuring a logo he had never seen before. Dismissively, he said, "You're not thinking of driving this to the military region, are you? It's so embarrassing. And you?" He pointed at David. "Look at your car. You are an embarrassment to us." Howard approached, studying David's and James' cars. Coldly, he said, "How mortifying. You'd better not take these cars at all. Check if you could hitch a ride in someone else's car. If grandfather did not say that all family members must be present, I wouldn't want you there at all. You'd only be an embarrassment. All the cars are full. No one would have any space left. Yeah. If you ask me, Benjamin and his family better stay behind." Several family members chimed in. Lex walked over, leaning on his cane. He took in Benjamin and his family, David's car worth only $200,000, and James' car resembling a lunar piece. He frowned. "I think you'd better stay behind. All the attendees are VIPs. You'll only embarrass us if you drive these cars." Thea started to say, "Grandfather." James stopped her. Smiling, he said, "We'll stay behind then, grandfather." "Jamie, what are you doing?" Thea looked resentful. "Yeah, we'll stay behind and avoid being an embarrassment." Gladys was happy to play along. They would only be mocked if they followed. They might as well stay at home. "Let's go." Lex entered the Bentley. For the occasion, the Callahans had hired a team of drummers. They started playing as the cars moved out. The fleet departed with much fanfare, attracting lots of attention. As the public saw the banner, they came up with a commentary. "This is so cool. How did the Callahans get an invitation to the Blythe King's succession ceremony? I heard Megan Callahan's boyfriend, Colson Oswald, helped them get it. Isn't that Benjamin Callahan? Why isn't he going? He's Lex Callahan's son after all. Even some of the relatives on bad terms with Lex are invited. Why isn't Benjamin and his family going? Let's not talk about it. Everyone knows he's useless. The voices kept coming. Good for nothing. Gladys glared at Benjamin viciously. Ever since she married him, she had always been looked down upon. Tia, do you want to go for the Blythe King's succession ceremony? James looked at her. Tia shook her head slightly, saying, there'll be a live stream on the internet anyway. Let's just watch it at home on TV. James took her hand. If you'd like to watch it in person, I'll take you. I could even get us VIP seats in the front row. He pointed at his car. See this. It's not an average vehicle. It's a special car from the Southern Plains, and there's only one person allowed to use it. I begged my superior to pull some strings so I could borrow it. Not even the Western Border Patrol would stop this car. Really? Tia looked disbelieving. Do you trust him? David looked at James disdainfully. This is just a lunar shine. What's so special about it? Trash. The entire family is trash. My husband is trash, my son is unambitious, and my son-in-law is useless. Gladys insulted the entire family. Come on, Tia, let's go. James lost his patience with the rest of the family, guiding Tia into the car. Once he joined her in the car, he wound the window down. Looking at Gladys just about to leave, he asked, Mom, why don't you come with us? It's not like you'll be doing anything else anyway. I've heard that all the rich and powerful families will be there. You've always wanted to get Tia a rich husband, right? This is a golden opportunity. You're right. Gladys nodded, glaring at James. Guess you're smart enough to know Tia's out of your league. In the passenger seat, Tia fumed. What was that, James? James smiled. If I didn't say that, would Mom agree to come? Don't worry. You'll enjoy your moment in the spotlight and witness Lex making a fool of himself. Gladys got into the car, but Benjamin and the others opted to go home. James raced toward the military region. They caught up with the fleet of Callahan cars in no time. James stopped rushing, tailing the cars leisurely. The Callahans might have been a second-rate family, but they were still reasonably wealthy. Everyone in the family had a luxury car or two. To help the Callahans keep up with appearances, Colson had also brought a luxury car from home to join the fleet. The fleet of luxury cars was an extravagant display. With more than 10 cars in the fleet and the accompanying drums, it was a lively event indeed. The banner preceding the fleet was the centerpiece of the display. Every eye noticed it. Many people recorded the scene and uploaded it on various platforms, making waves on social media. The Callahans are amazing. There were many important families in Kensington who missed out on an invitation, but not the Callahans. Well, it's all thanks to Colson. Everyone was talking about it. Inside the Brently, Lex smiled from ear to ear at the attention he was getting. The other Callahans were feeling pleased with themselves too. Attending the Blythe King's succession ceremony indicated that he approved of them. Now, they were truly an upper-class family. Thank you, dear. Megan was over the moon. She kissed Colson, who was driving, on the mouth. He had borrowed a Fira from his family. He looked pleased with himself. I told you, Megan. I won't let you down. How's this for making your family proud? It's amazing. Megan was so emotional she almost burst into tears. However, Dad mentioned that $5 million isn't quite enough. I'll inform Grandfather later and get him to pay up. Megan, that's not what I mean. Dear, you've been such a great help. How could we let you pay from your own pocket after this? Don't worry. We still have a few $1,000,000 in our account. Colson looked gratified. The fleet of cars advanced cumbersomely. The sounds of drums were so loud they were almost deafening. Passers-by kept recording the scene with their phones. Soon, they reached the military region. The ceremony had not started yet. Everyone was still waiting outside. The attendees kept a low profile. All of them were alone. Just then, the sounds of drums and firecrackers rent the air. It was ear-splitting. Everyone turned toward the noise, noticing a fleet of cars with the one in the lead exhibiting a banner. All those present were shocked at this display. The fleet stopped outside the military region. Lex disembarked, leaning on his cane. His face was aglow with pride, feeling as if he had achieved some amazing feat. The Callahans were finally an upper-class family. He saw some important people and greeted them. Even though the Callahans were a second-rate family, Lex still had some connections, distant as they were. Zimmerman, it's you. I see you've got an invitation as well. It cost you a lot, eh? Aren't you the chairman of Sea and Sky Pharmaceuticals? Good day, Mr. Smith. I'm Lex Callahan from Eternality. Recently, we've partnered up with Celestial Group. As soon as he arrived, Lex started greeting everyone he had met before, no matter how distant they were. He even held the invitation sent by the Western Border Patrol in his hand, flaunting it. All the other Callahans excited their cars as well, feeling like they were walking on air. This was an important milestone for them. Noticing the invitation Lex held, those in attendance adopted a different attitude. What? A special guest? They were all important people. They were familiar with the invitations. There were different types of invitations. The ones released to the public were usually standard spots only, allowing attendees to stand right at the back. However, a special guest was different. A special guest was entitled to a seat right in front. Lex's special guest invitation shocked many. The Callahans are just a second-rate family. How did they snag an invitation like this? No wonder they made a spectacle out of it. The Callahans were invited as the Blythe King's special guest. There was a running commentary on the matter. The Callahans must have been close to the Blythe King. Otherwise, how would they have managed to secure this invitation? Those who were special guests were the really important people. It was simply not enough to be rich. Mr. Callahan, it's you. How have you been? Lex, my friend, I haven't seen you in years. You've never looked better. Upon seeing the invitation, plenty of important people greeted Lex personally. Lex had never felt prouder as he noticed the big shots approaching him. He felt like he finally belonged to the upper class. Now, he enjoyed a connection with the big shots. The Callahans were glowing with pride. This was their moment. James and Tia remained in the car at the end of the line. Gladys regretted coming along. If she knew this would happen, she would not have come. With Lex enjoying the limelight so much, he would reward Megan. What a good boyfriend Megan's landed, she grumbled. James said nothing. He was waiting for everyone to enter. The higher Lex climbed now, the harder he would fall later. Alex was there as well. He envied Lex for the special guest invitation. It was all thanks to his granddaughter who married well. He walked up to Lex, greeting him. How are you, Mr. Callahan? Mr. Yates. Lex was surprised. He hurriedly stuck out his hand to shake Alex's. Warmly, he said, Mr. Yates, I am satisfied and happy with our partnership. I hope that we'll always be able to work together. Of course, Alex said. Oh, it's my 80th birthday in a few days. If you have time, you're welcome to. Lex did not even finish his sentence before Alex agreed. Of course, I'll be there. Callahan, old friend. Another voice rang out. A man in his 50s approached. It was Charles Bertrand, who was also at Ruiner's Villa last night. He was the chairman of a big pharmaceutical company, second only to Celestial. Having discovered who James was, he was slightly nervous now that he was meeting with Lex. Bertrand, how are you? The two men shook hands. Lex felt extremely proud right then. Once, they had treated him as invisible. Now, they were fighting to talk to him. He was so grateful to the Oswalds. As soon as the Callahans noticed it, they fawned over Coulson again. Mr. Callahan, how are you? Stefan Oswald was present as well, coming over to shake hands with Lex. He did not expect that Lex knew the Blythe King, even managing to secure a special guest invitation. Now was the time to get into Lex's good books. We should be family. Should my son and Megan get engaged after the ceremony later? Haha, I'd like that. Lex laughed. He had never felt prouder in his life, feeling on top of the world. The Callahans were finally an upper-class family. Just then, the doors to the military region opened. Soldiers clad in their uniforms approached, forming two lines. A lieutenant walked out and said, "The ceremony will commence soon. Please enter and seat yourselves according to the numbers on your invitation." The restructuring of the 5 armies was a major incident involving the 5 regions. All key personnel of the 5 regions were required to attend. This was supposed to be an internal matter not privy to the public. However, since the Blight King was taking over as the commander-in-chief of the 5 armies, they made an exception. Some seats were made available to the public. There were numbers printed on the invitation cards. Each number corresponded with a seat at the venue. As soon as they heard that they could enter, everyone consciously made way for Lex. As he was a special guest, his seat would be at the forefront where the commanders of the other military regions would be. A man of his stature should take the lead. What was going on? Lex was slightly confused. Why are you still standing around, old mate? Go on. Lex jerked out of his reverie as a voice called out to him. What's going on? Should I be going in first? After pausing for a few seconds, he burst out laughing. Tapping his dragon head cane on the ground, he walked toward the entrance under everyone's gaze with his head held high. I'm so envious. After this, the Callahans would have made it. Within 3 years, the Clahan's assets would multiply. I promise. Everyone mumbled under their breath. Though the voices were soft, Lex still managed to hear them. As a man who craved prestige and recognition, he felt proud and satisfied hearing what they said. The other business moguls followed suit after Lex had made his way to the entrance. They made a line, waiting for someone to check their invitations. Once they were in line, the lieutenant announced, "Let me make myself clear. First, please keep to the path on the side after you enter. Head right to the back and stand in the designated areas according to the flow markers. Please remain silent once you've found your spot. You're not allowed to leave early. Also, the lieutenant presented them with a list of rules. Everyone took mental notes. We'll be checking your invitations now. Lex showed the lieutenant his invitation, which looked exquisite. As soon as the lieutenant saw that it was a special invitation, he stood at attention, saluting Lex. Good day, sir. Lex was dazed when the lieutenant called him, sir. All the people behind Lex simply looked envious. He was definitely close to the Blight King. Even a general was being so respectful toward him. The other Callahans standing slightly further away looked on proudly. All of them recorded this momentous occasion with their phones. After saluting Lex, the lieutenant unfolded the invitation. As he saw the name printed on it, his expression darkened. There was no doubt the higher authorities issued this invitation. However, they had also issued a command to bar and throw Lex Callahan out if he came. The lieutenant spared Lex a glance before ordering the soldiers around him to throw Lex out. Yes, sir. 2 soldiers approached and lifted Lex by each of his arms. Lex was stunned, and then he panicked. He shouted, "General, sir, what's going on? I have an invitation. What are you doing?" Ah! Lex was thrown out, hitting the ground hard. For several moments, he remained where he was, unable to get up. Everyone else was dumbfounded. What was going on? The lieutenant had just saluted Lex, so why did he throw Lex out the next second? The Callahans stared blankly when they saw this, not knowing what to do. How dare you fake an invitation from the Blight King? We'll release you since you are a first-time offender. Otherwise, you'll be executed, the lieutenant said coldly. Lex ignored his aching body. He stood up pitifully and looked at Stefan. Loudly, he said, "Stefan, help me. The Western Border Patrol delivered the invitation to us in person because of you." Stefan wanted to wash his hands clean of Lex as soon as he heard that Lex had a counterfeit invitation. Immediately, he said, "Don't go making any accusations, Lex. What has your fake invitation got to do with me?" Lex panicked, looking around for someone else to help him. His eyes landed on Coulson, walking over to him pitifully. He grabbed Coulson's hand and begged, "Coulson, say something. Please help me." Coulson panicked as well. How would he know what was going on? An idea came to him suddenly. Hurriedly, he said, "Grandfather, did you offend someone? I promise you that the invitation is genuine. You must have offended someone important to get treated this way." I didn't." Lex was so anxious he almost cried. "Ah, I know. The firecrackers must have made the Blight King unhappy. Grandfather, didn't I tell you to keep a low profile? You wanted all the pomp instead," Coulson said while smacking his forehead. Lex agreed with Coulson. He regretted everything in that instant. If he knew that this was going to happen, he would not have put on such a lavish display. Those who wanted to cozy up to Lex earlier were now looking at him disdainfully. At the end of the Clahan's fleet, James sat in the driver's seat. In the passenger seat, Thea glanced at James. She looked confused. Jamie, was this what you were referring to when you said we would see grandfather make a fool of himself? You knew this was going to happen, didn't you? What's going on? James smiled. I wasn't lying last night. I had my superior get in touch with certain people, which was why the Western Border Patrol sent an invitation to the Callahans. Since someone else took credit for it, I called my superior again. I requested that the Western Border Patrol invalidate the Callahans' invitation. Haha, great job, James. Excellent. In the back seat, Gladys started cackling. Even though it was her father getting barred, she felt happy. She could not help but praise James. This stubborn old man believes anything anyone tells him. HMPH. What have the Oswalds got to do with this? Serves him right for disregarding my son-in-law's efforts. Thea was speechless. Mom, that's grandfather we're talking about. How can you say that? So what? He's just a stubborn old man. He's always been biased toward Howard and John. What about your dad, eh? I'm pleased that he's suffering. What are you going to do about it? James smiled slightly. He turned and looked at Thea. Thea, do you want to go for the Blythe King's succession ceremony? Huh? Thea was stunned. She asked, see, can we still go? The Callahans' invitation is now void. James chuckled and tapped the steering wheel. Didn't I tell you? This car belongs to a VIP. Let's put it this way. My superior's friend is the VIP's driver. He's not in Kensington at the moment, so I begged my superior to let me drive the car. With this car, the Western Border Patrol would definitely let us pass. Are you sure? Thea was not sure she believed him. What are you waiting for? Go. Gladys believed James, hitting him on the head. Okay. James smiled and put the car into drive, honking the horn as he went. Beep. Just as everyone witnessed Lex getting thrown out, a horn sounded from the end of the Callahans' fleet. A multi-purpose vehicle without a license plate appeared. As soon as the car moved, Gladys wound the window down and poked her head out, looking at all the millionaires. They were dumbfounded. What were the Callahans playing at? They were approaching in a car and honking the horn in front of so many soldiers. Were they planning on driving right into the military region? Lex regretted everything deeply. He regretted putting on such a lavish display, even setting off firecrackers outside the military region. Now that the higher-ups were unhappy, he lost the opportunity to attend the succession ceremony. Just then, a horn sounded. Lex saw James approaching in a car. And there he was, worried that he would not find a punching bag. Leaning on his cane, he approached the car. He tapped his cane on the ground angrily. You worthless B*****. Haven't you done enough? Leave at once. Beep. James looked at the scowling Lex and honked the horn, asking him to get out of the way. Gladys poked her head out. Dad, what are you doing? What happened? Why are you covered in dust? Oh yeah, James said that he can drive in. You're not young anymore. Why don't you hop in? We'll take you inside. Lex fumed at what Gladys said. She did it on purpose, knowing that Lex would never believe what she said. As he was egoistic, he would never enter the car either. Tommy approached, roaring, James, you idiot. What are you doing? Get lost. Don't you know where we are? How dare you bring the car over? Don't get us involved in your mess. Howard made his way over to them, preparing to slap James. However, James wound his window up just in time. Jamie, stop it. Grandfather has offended the Blythe King. If we continue to cause trouble, what'll happen to us? Thea was afraid. They were just outside the military region. Besides the Blythe King, there were still many other important people within. Beep beep. James honked his horn again, signaling the Callahans to go away. They were blocking the car. Gladys invited Lex to join them once more. After Lex refused, she smiled. James, the stubborn old man isn't getting in. I knew he wouldn't. Let's go in now. I'm warning you, you better make me proud this time, otherwise, I will never forgive you. Everyone looked as if they were waiting for a drama to unfold. The Callahans were hilarious. First, they came up with a counterfeit invitation with a lavish display with drums and firecrackers to boot, afraid that no one would know of their accomplishment. Now, they wanted to drive into the military region. Was the entire family fools? James was not about to knock Lex over with his car. He reversed slightly and went around Lex and the other Callahans. However, there was a queue in front of them. Beep beep. James honked the horn again. Gladys poked her head out, shouting, "Are you blind? Can't you see that this is a car? Get out of the way." The moguls glanced at each other. Then, with mocking expressions, they parted and made way for James. Trash. Lex was shaking in anger. He raised his cane, rushing over and striking the rear windshield hard. However, the glass did not shatter. Instead, Lex staggered backward and fell to the ground again. Some of the Callahans helped Lex up. Lex turned pale. "Quick, stop them. Don't let him get us into trouble." The Callahans sprung into action at once. They blocked James' car, not letting him advance.